B, me, Paul, senior engineer at a comfortably mid-tier tech outfit. We'll nickname it Innovate Corp to keep it vague. The office tries hard to look visionary. Lounge chairs no one uses, endless snack shelves, and leadership tossing around buzzwords like they're spells. None of that moves the needle for me. I'm here to ship stable builds and keep systems from collapsing. Head down, no-nonsense workflow, caffeine strong and unadulterated, code structured the way it should be. That's about as complicated as my routine gets. This all happened maybe a year or so ago. The company announces a big internal competition, a hackathon on steroids, the CEO calls it. The goal, build a working prototype for a new flagship application in 3 months. 2 teams would be formed to compete against each other. The winning team gets a massive cash bonus for each member and, more importantly, gets to lead the new department being formed around the product. This isn't just for bragging rights. This is a career-making opportunity. The entire company is gathered in the main conference hall for the announcement. The vibe is a mix of excitement and anxiety. I'm sitting in the back, already sketching out potential system architectures in my notebook. Then Lillian stands up during the Q&A. Oh boy, Lillian. Lillian is a character. She's a project manager who seems to spend more time on internal social justice campaigns than on managing projects. Every conversation with her eventually circles back to the patriarchy or male toxicity. She's the reason the coffee machine now has a 7-page guide on inclusive brewing practices. She clears her throat into the microphone, and the whole room braces itself. She starts by saying she's thrilled about the initiative, but has deep concerns about the inherent systemic biases in a competitive environment, says that tech competitions historically favor aggressive masculine approaches and can create a hostile environment for women. I can see our department head, a pretty standard middle manager type, start to sweat. The last thing he wants is an HR incident. Lillian continues, proposing a radical but necessary adjustment to the competition structure. She wants to lead one of the teams, and she wants her team to be composed exclusively of women. She calls it a unique opportunity to foster a non-hierarchical, collaborative, and emotionally safe space for female innovation to thrive without the oppressive weight of the male gaze. A few people in the room are nodding along. Most are just staring, completely baffled. I'm just sitting there, thinking about database schemas, but now I can't help but watch the train wreck. The manager, predictably, caves instantly. He starts praising her for her brave and forward-thinking suggestion. He says the company is proud to support such a progressive experiment. So, it's settled. Team A will be Project Siren, Lillian's all-women team. Then the manager looks around the room, his eyes scanning for someone who won't cause any trouble. His gaze lands on me. Of course it does. Paul, the quiet code guy who never complains. A little while later, I'm called into his office. He tells me I'll be leading the second team. Team B, the mixed team. He frames it like it's a great honor, but we both know what it is. I'm the safe choice. He says my team will be formed from the remaining talent pool, the leftovers. I don't argue. I don't care about the politics. I just want to build the best product. I nod, say, okay, and walk out. The next few days are all about team formation. Lillian's process is an event. She holds formal interviews for every woman in the engineering department. I hear from a friend that the interviews are less about technical skills and more about ideological alignment. She asks questions like, how do you navigate male-dominated spaces? And describe a time you've had to overcome internalized misogyny in your work. One of the best back-end developers in the company, a woman named Naya, apparently got rejected. The rumor is Naya answered one of Lillian's questions by saying, I don't really think about gender. I just focus on writing efficient algorithms. Lillian apparently told her she wasn't conscious enough for the project, so Naya wasn't picked. Lillian ends up with a team of about 6 women who all seem to share her worldview. Among them is a junior developer named Della. Della is young, fresh out of college, and a true believer. She seems genuinely excited about the idea of a female-led project that will show the men how it's done. My team formation is a lot simpler. I send out a single email to the remaining engineers in the department. I'm leading the second project team. The goal is to build a functional prototype of Application X in 3 months. Here's the tech stack I'm proposing. If you're interested in just building cool stuff and winning, let me know. Within an hour, my team is full. A few solid male engineers, and Naya. She was the first to respond. Her email just said, "I'm in, let's get to work." I knew right then that we had a fighting chance. The company gives us 2 large project rooms, right next to each other, separated by a big glass wall. Day 1, Lillian's team spends the entire morning redecorating. They cover their side of the glass wall with posters. "Smash the patriarchy. The future is female. A woman's place is in the revolution." Our side of the glass wall gets a massive whiteboard. By the end of the day, our whiteboard is covered in system architecture diagrams, database schemas, and API endpoint definitions. Their side has a feelings chart and a schedule for their daily emotional check-in meetings. The contrast was stark. The first month of the project sets the tone for everything that follows. Our team, which I unofficially start calling Team Anomaly, operates like a well-oiled machine. We start every day with a 10-minute stand-up meeting. What did you do yesterday? What are you doing today? Any blockers? No fluff, no drama, just information. After that, it's headphones on and deep focus. The only sounds in our room are the clicking of keyboards and the occasional technical discussion at the whiteboard. Naya is an absolute powerhouse. She designs the entire back-end architecture in about a week, and it's flawless. The other guys are brilliant too, each taking ownership of their modules. We work hard, but the atmosphere is light. We make jokes, we grab lunch together. There's a sense of mutual respect. No one cares about anything other than the quality of the work. Meanwhile, next door, it's a different universe. We can't see them because of the posters, but we can hear them. Their emotional check-ins often last for over an hour. We can hear raised voices, arguments, and sometimes even crying. One afternoon, we hear a massive argument break out because someone used the word guys to refer to the group, which was apparently a violent act of patriarchal language. Another time, they spent an entire day debating the colonialist implications of using a master-slave database replication model. They decided to rename it Leader-Follower, which took them 6 hours of discussion and accomplished nothing from a technical standpoint. Their project velocity is glacial. Della, the young idealist, seems to be the only one actually trying to write code. We sometimes see her in the kitchen, looking exhausted. She once quietly asked one of my guys a question about a JavaScript framework we were using. She mentioned that Lillian had forbidden them from using mainstream male-created frameworks and insisted they build everything from scratch to ensure it was ideologically pure. The guy just stared at her, speechless, before giving her a link to the documentation. The halfway point of the project arrives. We have to present our progress to the management. Team Anomaly is on fire. We have a working skeletal version of the application. The core features are functional. The UI is rough, but the back end is solid and scalable. We do a live demo, and it works perfectly. The execs are visibly impressed. Then it's Project Siren's turn. Lillian walks up to the podium and delivers a 15-minute speech. She doesn't talk about technology. She talks about their journey, about the emotional labor of creating a truly inclusive space. She talks about how their process is revolutionary because it prioritizes feminine ways of knowing over rigid masculine logic. It's a masterclass in corporate buzzword salad. Finally, the manager asks, "That's great, Lillian. Can we see the application?" Lillian smiles and says they are deprioritizing the demo to focus on their foundational ethical framework. In other words, they have nothing to show, not a single line of working code. The room is awkwardly silent. The manager just coughs and says, "Okay, well, keep up the great work." You could feel the tide turning. People were starting to whisper. The free snacks in the kitchen became a hotspot for gossip about Project Siren's lack of progress. Lillian's response to this pressure wasn't to work harder. It was to become more militant. Her team's door was now always closed. They started communicating with the rest of the company only through long, passive-aggressive emails about the lack of institutional support and the unrealistic masculine deadlines they were facing. They were building a fortress of excuses. Inside that fortress, things were apparently getting worse. The pressure was getting to Della. She's a young developer. She wants to build things, to learn, to prove herself. Instead, she's stuck in endless meetings about feelings and ideology. Her code is constantly being rejected by Lillian, not for technical reasons, but because it's not aligned with the team's core values. One evening, I'm working late. So is Naya. We're trying to crack a particularly nasty bug. The office is mostly empty. It's quiet. Suddenly, there's a soft knock on our glass door. It's Della. She looks like she's on the verge of tears. She's holding her laptop. She looks at me, then at Naya. She seems to trust Naya more. She says, "I'm so sorry to bother you. I know we're on different teams, but I'm completely stuck. I've been working on this one module for 3 weeks and I can't get it to work. Lillian says I just need to connect with the code spirit, and I don't know what that means." My first instinct is to say no. It's a competition. Helping her feels like a bad idea. But Naya just gives her a calm, reassuring smile. She gestures to the empty chair next to her. "No problem, let's take a look." Della sits down, visibly relieved. Naya and Della huddle over the laptop. I pretend to work, but I'm listening. Naya is an incredible teacher. She's patient, clear, and direct. She doesn't just give Della the answer. She asks her questions, guiding her toward the solution herself. "What's this function supposed to do?" "Okay, and what is it actually doing? Why do you think there's a difference?" No jargon, no ideology, just pure, simple, elegant logic. In about 20 minutes, Naya helps Della find the bug. It was a simple error in her state management logic, something any junior developer could easily make. Della's face lights up with understanding. "Oh my God," she says. "It's so obvious now. Thank you. Thank you so much." She looks at Naya with genuine admiration. "They told me all the senior developers were unapproachable and just wanted to show off. But you're amazing." Naya just shrugs. "We're all just trying to make the machine think. It's not magic." Della thanks her again and practically floats out of our office. I look at Naya. "That was nice of you." She just smiles. She's a dev who was stuck. I'm a dev who could help. It's that simple. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. The next morning, the shouting from next door is louder than ever. We can't make out the words, but we can clearly hear one voice dominating all the others. Lillian's. It goes on for nearly 2 hours. Later that day, I run into Della in the hallway. She looks destroyed. Her eyes are red and puffy. She avoids looking at me and rushes past. I get the full story later from one of the guys on my team who is friends with a woman on Lillian's team. Apparently, Della came into their morning meeting, excited to show off her now working module. Lillian was initially impressed, but then she got suspicious. "How did you solve this, Della? Yesterday you were completely lost." Della is not a good liar. She's too honest. She admitted that she asked Naya for help. Lillian exploded. She accused Della of the ultimate sin, seeking validation from a patriarchal system. She called her a traitor to the sisterhood. She said that by asking a member of the opposing male-led team for help, Della had invalidated their entire struggle. She made Della stand in front of the whole team and confess her ideological failures. The other women on the team, who were probably just scared of Lillian themselves, all joined in. They told Della she had let them all down. They essentially excommunicated her. She was now an outcast within her own team, a pariah in the safe space that was supposed to protect her. From that day on, Della was a ghost. She came into work, sat at her desk with her headphones on, and spoke to no one. Lillian had assigned all her critical tasks to other team members. Della was left to work on documentation, which everyone in tech knows is the code word for "you're useless to us." The cruelty of it was breathtaking. They didn't just disagree with her. They humiliated her and broke her spirit, all because she asked for help on a technical problem. That was the moment I stopped seeing it as a friendly competition. It became personal. I wanted to win, not for the bonus, not for the promotion. I wanted to win for Della, and for Naya, and for every other person in that building who just wanted to do good work without being dragged into someone else's ideological crusade. I wanted to see Lillian's whole self-righteous world come crashing down around her. And I knew the final presentation was the place it was going to happen. The final month was a blur of intense work. Our team went into overdrive. We were polishing the UI, squashing the last few bugs, and load testing the servers. The energy in our room was electric. We knew we had built something special. The application was fast, stable, and intuitive. We were proud of it. Next door, the silence was deafening. No more shouting matches, no more emotional check-ins. just a grim, tense quiet. The posters on their glass walls started to look faded and sad. The day of the final presentation arrived. The entire company leadership was there. The CEO, the VPS, all the department heads. The atmosphere in the main conference hall was thick with anticipation. Project Siren was up first. Lillian walked to the front of the room with a confident smile, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. The rest of her team sat in the front row, looking like they were attending a funeral. Della sat in the very back, alone, as far away from them as possible. Lillian started her presentation not with a slide deck, but with a dramatic sigh. She stood in the center of the stage, hands clasped, and began to speak in a soft, curated voice, like someone narrating a documentary about a tragedy. She talked about the emotional odyssey of Project Siren. She described their office not as a workspace, but as a crucible of feminist praxis. She explained that their goal was not merely to write code, but to deconstruct the patriarchal narratives embedded in traditional software development. I looked at the CEO. He was a no-nonsense, old-school business guy. He looked utterly bewildered, like he'd accidentally walked into the wrong lecture hall. She went on like this for what felt like an eternity. Every sentence was packed with academic jargon that had no place in a product pitch. She mentioned intersectionality, hegemonic structures, and the epistemological violence of binary logic. At one point, she claimed they had spent a whole week unpacking the trauma of the command line interface. I glanced at Naya. She had her hand over her mouth, trying to stifle a laugh. Finally, after about 15 minutes of this, the VP of engineering, a very pragmatic and technical man, cleared his throat. "Lillian," he said, his voice polite but firm, "this is all very insightful, but can you show us the application?" Lillian's smile tightened for a fraction of a second before returning. "Of course. We were just laying the essential ethical groundwork for what you're about to see." She clicked a button on her remote, and a projection of a laptop screen appeared on the main display. The background was a stock photo of a diverse group of women laughing together in a field of wildflowers. In the center of the screen was the application's icon. She clicked it. A loading screen appeared. It had the Project Siren logo and a little spinning icon. The icon spun, and spun, and spun. The room was dead silent. You could hear the hum of the projector. Lillian kept her composure, talking over the awkward silence. Our application is built on a non-linear, holistic architecture, so it sometimes requires a more meditative approach to initialization. After a full minute of spinning, an error message popped up. Initialization failed, core services unresponsive. A nervous murmur rippled through the audience. Lillian didn't miss a beat. "Ah, yes, a perfect example of the hostile environment we've been discussing. The corporate network infrastructure, having been designed by men, is struggling to interface with our female-coded software." She closed the error message and tried to launch the app again. This time, it actually opened. The UI was a choice. It looked like a MySpace page from 2007 had a baby with a PowerPoint presentation. The color scheme was a jarring mix of pastel pinks and neon greens. The fonts were all different sizes and styles. Nothing was aligned properly. Buttons were overlapping text. Images were stretched and pixelated. Lillian navigated to the login screen. She typed in a username and password with a flourish. She clicked Log In. The application froze. The mouse cursor turned into the spinning wheel of death. The entire screen went a hazy, translucent white. She clicked frantically, but nothing happened. The application was completely locked up. The CEO was now leaning forward, squinting at the screen with an expression of pure disbelief. Lillian let out a nervous laugh. As you can see, the application is so powerful, it's momentarily overwhelmed the system's processing capabilities. She force-quit the application and launched it a third time. She logged in again. This time, it worked. It took her to the main dashboard. The dashboard was a chaotic mess of charts and panels with no clear purpose. The VP of engineering spoke up again. "Lillian, what is the core function of this app? What problem does it solve for the user?" Lillian smiled. "That's a very product-centric masculine question. We prefer to think of it not as solving a problem, but as creating a space for users to be. It's a digital sanctuary." The VP just stared at her. "So, "What does this button do?" he asked, pointing to a large pulsating button in the middle of the screen labeled Activate Synergy. Lillian's eyes lit up. "That is our core innovation, the Synergy Core. It leverages a non-Western intuitive data paradigm to foster collaborative—" "Just click the button, Lillian," the CEO said, his voice flat. Lillian's smile vanished. She took a deep breath. She clicked the button. The moment she clicked it, the application crashed. It didn't just freeze this time. The window vanished. An operating system error report popped up. A long technical message about a fatal memory access violation. It was a catastrophic, unrecoverable failure. A complete train wreck. The room was silent. There was nowhere for her to hide. No excuse she could make. She stood there, bathed in the blue light of the projector, showing her desktop, the crash report front and center. She opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time since I'd known her, Lillian was speechless. "Thank you, Lillian," the manager said, his voice barely a whisper, trying to end the excruciating awkwardness. "Next up, Paul and Team Anomaly." Our team name was an inside joke, but the manager used it, and it stuck. Lillian walked off the stage, her face a mask of cold fury. She didn't look at anyone. She sat down with her team, who all refused to make eye contact with her. I walked up to the podium. I didn't have a speech. I just connected my laptop. "Good morning," I said. "For the past 3 months, my team has been building the application you asked for. Here it is." I didn't launch it from my laptop. I picked up a tablet that was already connected to the display. Our goal was to create something fast, reliable, and easy to use. The application is designed to solve a core business problem, streamlining our client data management. I tapped the icon on the tablet. The application launched in less than a second. The login screen was clean, simple, and professional. I handed the tablet to the CEO, who was sitting in the front row. "Why don't you try it out, sir?" He looked surprised, but he took it. "The test login is admin, and the password is password123, I said. He typed it in. The dashboard loaded instantly. It was beautiful, not in an artistic way, but in a functional way. Everything was exactly where you'd expect it to be. The data was clearly presented in sortable tables and interactive graphs. The design was clean and responsive. I could see the CEO's eyes light up. This was a language he understood. This was a tool. This was a product. "Let's try adding a new client," he said. I talked him through it from the stage. "Tap the new client button in the top right." He did. A simple form appeared. "Fill in some dummy data." He typed quickly with his thumbs. Name, address, contact info. He hit Save. The new client instantly appeared in the main list, sorted alphabetically. "Now, let's test the search," I said. He tapped the search bar. He typed in the first 3 letters of the name he'd just entered. The list filtered in, real time. The new client was the only one left. It was instantaneous. The CEO smiled, a real, genuine smile. He handed the tablet to the VP of engineering next to him. The VP started putting it through its paces. He was testing edge cases, trying to break it. He tried uploading a massive file. It processed and attached it in seconds with a progress bar. He tried exporting a huge data set to a spreadsheet. A file downloaded to the tablet almost immediately. He tried running a complex data analysis report. The graphs on the dashboard updated in less than a second. He looked up at me and nodded, impressed. He passed the tablet to the VP of sales, who passed it to the head of operations. For the next 5 minutes, the tablet made its way down the entire front row of executives. Each one of them used it, tapped it, swiped it, tried to find a flaw. They couldn't. It just worked. Flawlessly. While they were doing that, I put a single slide up on the screen. It was a list of my team members' names. "This project was a team effort," I said. "Every person on this list made a critical contribution. But I especially want to thank Naya. Her back-end architecture is the reason this application is as fast and stable as it is. She is one of the most talented engineers I have ever worked with." Naya, who was sitting with our team, looked genuinely surprised and pleased. I saw Della, in the back of the room, give a small, sad smile. The tablet finally made its way back to the CEO. He stood up. "Well," he said, holding the tablet, "I think the results speak for themselves." The manager, seeing his cue, scurried to the podium. He cleared his throat. Yes. After careful consideration, the management team has decided that the winner of the competition and the team that will lead the new department is Team Anomaly. A round of applause broke out in the room. It wasn't polite corporate applause. It was genuine. People were impressed. Our team was shaking hands, patting each other on the back. A huge wave of relief and pride washed over me. We did it. And then, from the front row, a voice cut through the applause. No! It was Lillian. She had shot to her feet. Her face was contorted in a mask of pure rage. "This is unacceptable!" she screamed, her voice echoing in the suddenly silent hall. Everyone turned to stare at her. This entire competition was a sham. It was a setup from the very beginning. The manager looked horrified. "Lillian, please." "Don't you, Lillian, please me," she shrieked. "You men, you can't stand to see a group of powerful women succeed on their own terms. You had to sabotage us." She started pacing back and forth in front of the stage. "You gave them more resources. You gave them better equipment. Your network was designed to make our app fail. You conspired against us because you are terrified of female excellence." The CEO just stared at her, his expression cold as ice. Then she turned and pointed a trembling finger directly at me. "And you," she snarled. "You and your little pet, Naya. You undermined us. You poached our team members. You took advantage of a junior developer's vulnerability to steal our intellectual property." I just looked at her. I didn't say a word. There was nothing to say. She was completely unhinged. Her team members were sinking lower and lower in their seats, trying to become invisible. She started ranting about the patriarchy, about male privilege, about how this was just another example of the system keeping women down. It was a full-blown public meltdown. Finally, the CEO had had enough. He gestured subtly to the head of security, who was standing by the door. Two security guards, a man and a woman, walked calmly and quietly toward Lillian. "Ma'am," one of them said in a low, calm voice, "I think it's time to go." Lillian spun around to face them. "Don't you touch me! This is assault!" But her tirade was losing steam. She was running out of breath. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving behind a raw, desperate panic. They didn't touch her. They just stood there, waiting. The silence in the room was absolute. Everyone was watching. Lillian looked around at the sea of faces staring at her. Pity, disgust, embarrassment. She looked at her own team, who wouldn't meet her eyes. She looked at me, and my complete lack of reaction seemed to infuriate her more than anything. Her shoulders slumped. The fight went out of her. She grabbed her bag, shot one last look of pure hatred in my direction, and stormed out of the conference hall, the security guards following her at a respectful distance. The moment the door closed behind her, the CEO turned to the rest of us. He cleared his throat. "Well, as I was saying, congratulations, Paul, and to your team. Let's schedule a meeting for tomorrow morning to discuss the transition. Welcome aboard." The aftermath was swift. Lillian was fired, of course. Not for her incompetence, but for her outburst. The official reason was unprofessional conduct. A few days later, I saw her post on LinkedIn. It was a long, dramatic screed about how she had bravely chosen to leave a toxic, misogynistic work environment that punishes strong female leaders. She claimed she was going to start her own consulting firm to help companies create truly equitable workplaces. It got hundreds of likes and comments of support from her online echo chamber. The rest of her team was quietly reassigned to different low-profile projects. They scattered to the winds. About a week after the presentation, I was in our new, much larger office. We were sketching out the roadmap for the product's official launch. There was a knock on the door. It was Della. She looked nervous, but determined. "Hi," she said, looking me straight in the eye. "I heard you have a few open spots on your team now that you're a department." I nodded. "We do." "I'd like to apply," she said. "I know my last project was a disaster, but I learned something. I learned that I just want to build things that work. I'm ready to work, not just talk." I looked over at Naya, who gave me a slight, approving nod. I smiled at Della. "Welcome to the team," I said, and pointed to an empty desk. "Grab a seat." We were just about to figure out our next big challenge. A look of profound relief washed over her face. She walked in, sat down, and for the first time in 3 months, she looked like she truly belonged. We had won, not just the competition, but something more. Merit had won, sanity had won, and that felt better than any cash bonus.